they would be willing to do, just
Okay.
get the word out a little further.
I think it'd be easier for them just to put it in their bulletin rather than dealing with flyers.
A flyer? Okay,
That's just my opinion.
That's a really good idea.
okay. All right.
All right, great, wonderful, thank you. Anything else from administration? Mrs. Hoffman?
No, sir.
All right. Okay, so then we have finance and business development. Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Montgomery?
Thank you. The auditors are currently working on preparing a draft of the comprehensive annual financial report. We expect to have a copy of that draft in the coming weeks, and after we receive it, we'll proof the document and complete the management discussion and analysis and transmittal letter. And we hope to have a formal presentation of the audit report at the December Finance Committee meeting. The staff is currently finishing up the September 30, 2017 financial statements, and those statements will be distributed as soon as they're ready. That's all I have. Mr. Montgomery?
All right, Mr. Bodie? All right. All right, next up then, we've got codes, building, and zoning. Mr. Nicely?
Yes. This foreclosure now, I think we should, if you will, Mr. Hans, come and help us out, because he's more experienced on it, I think, than anyone.
Oh, to present, Mr. Hahn, would you be willing?
Yes, thank you. There's was quite a few things that we discussed at the committee meeting. The first was the foreclosure policy, which was requested by Ms. Fetty. So if she has anything to add to that for tonight's meeting.
I think we were all in agreement that we were going to do the cost-benefit analysis prior to any city-initiated foreclosures. So other than whether or not we have to put that into writing,
I think we decided that that would be an internal issue and that Matt Kramer would be working with the Wickman firm on it.
okay.
And is there a policy that we need to update?
No, there's no current policy, so.
No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
The other thing was also Ms. Fetty's was that Ms. Sudkamp brought up about the Citizens Resource Advocate. If you'd like to elaborate on that.
Yeah, just briefly, we'll have a presentation on the 21st, so if we could add time to the committee meeting. All the department heads will be presenting and talking about this idea, how it would work within our city. We'll go over a little bit about how Alexandria's works, where they came up with the idea. It's very promising, and we're very excited about this opportunity. So we'll talk about it in great detail on the 21st.
Alrighty. Also, I just wanted to update you that the past Thursday was the public hearing for our text amendment application to add the child care centers to the neighborhood shopping center zone that we talked about from down on Stevenson Road. That hearing, they voted unanimously to recommend approval of that, so we would need probably a motion or something to give Mr. Gatlin the authority to draft that ordinance.
All right, so we've got a motion by Mrs. Pitts, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Motion carried.
One other thing we discussed at the committee meeting was about the sign regulations. It also went through the Planning Commission process at the last meeting. I think we discussed it that would go on the agenda for our committee meeting on the third Tuesday. I don't know the date.
21st, yeah.
Okay, to discuss that. Mark Stewart and I are putting together a spreadsheet showing what we currently have and what the new will do that I'll get out to you all prior to that meeting so you give it a look. But basically it just has to do with bringing into compliance with the Supreme Court decision that was at some time that these two gentlemen could probably address better than I. So, but we can discuss that in a couple of weeks.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so you've heard the reports of the committees. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Sedkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we've got the reports of representatives. Are there any reports of the representatives this evening? Go ahead, Mrs. Skidmore.
Kenton County Alliance had their meeting today, and it's kind of ironic, we actually had a big discussion about some of the same things that Jessica is talking about with the advocate that will kind of help keep everybody on track. I guess it's always going to be with us. As of November the 1st, I don't know if you all can see it. You probably can't see this, but the bottom line is pink, and that's where the Erlanger-Ellesmere schools are. And we are right here with 14% of the students in the Erlanger-Ellesmere School District are homeless or in need of some kind of direction as far as maybe like don't have enough food, don't have a place to live, trying to train the people who are actually the parents into wise choices. And there is a grant for this, and you can look this up online, but it's called the McKinney/Vento Homeless Assistance Grant. And the thing that Jessica is suggesting would go right along with that.
Yeah.
And I believe Kenton County Alliance is actually most probably going to apply for that. And Todd, I told you I was bad on titles, so I don't, if you want to add anything to it. No, I think I'll just wait till the 21st. Okay. Okay, and then we'll have more information and just do it all at once.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Kyle?
Yes, the Historical Society, they're still looking for volunteers. Their volunteers meet every Thursday from 10 a.m. until noon, and they help out with various museum chores, and we would welcome anybody that would want to join. And our project for the winter is the inventory. They want to get that under control. And the next meeting is tomorrow evening, November the 8th, 7:30 at the Depot Museum. They're going to be electing officers for the 2018-2019 years, and they're going to finalize the following: 2018 plan for fundraising, a library presentation topic, a walking tour destination, and topics for research for articles in the January and August newsletters. And also, if you check out their website, it's ErlangerHistoricalSociety.com. They have history and news and archives. They have some interesting articles about Erlanger history. There's always some little tidbit in there. And the volunteers are working on creating more articles for the website. So check out the website. That's it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cahill?
Yes, okay, I had their September meeting, and I thought it was interesting. They had a Maps and Apps presentation for environmental viewer, and this viewer is intended for public agencies, private organizations, businesses, students, and others to increase their awareness of our region's natural resources, assets, identify any conservation needs and opportunities, and better understand how to reduce the adverse and costly environmental impact. This is all on their front page. This is available to anybody from the OKI website. It's a great little tool. A lot of excitement with that. This is part of the 2020 plan that they had developed this. And, it's just something for anybody if they're looking at that around their area, what they have as far as watersheds, anything like that. It's kind of a nice tool to have. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Mrs. Fetty?
The October meeting of the King County Mayor's Group was the 2017 Lou Knoll Symposium. Lots of really interesting presentations. We had a presentation from the King County Fiscal Court where they went over the calculation of how they came up with the 911 fees. It was very interesting. Then SD1 also talked, they gave out the city liaison information She said that she would be more than welcome to come to one of our council meetings anytime to discuss what SD1 does for our community. And her name's Angela Cook. If we wanted to reach out to her at any time, she's more than welcome to attend. The most interesting part of the symposium was the PDS presentation. It was a service that they offer called story mapping. And this has been used over in Fort Mitchell. It's been used in a couple of different cities. It's all available on their website, and I'll send that out to you. But basically, a city has an idea or an issue. For example, Fort Mitchell had the issue with Buttermilk and the orphanage intersection being an issue with traffic, with accidents, the fire trucks trying to get through, police trying to get through, traffic constantly backing up. So they went to PDS, and PDS was able to put together a traffic study. They interviewed local business owners, they interviewed citizens, they, excuse me, took all the pictures, took video, and they created a story map that was a beautiful representation of the issue. I talked to the lady that does all of this story mapping. I asked her how much it is, and it's just a service that's offered by them for their cities. So there's no additional cost. So I think this is something that we might want to look into doing for Stevenson Road. I kind of asked her, like, how long is the wait period to get, to do one of these projects. She said the earliest we could get is February. But I think it's definitely something we should do. I mean, what they do is then take this presentation and go to the state and say, okay, here's exactly what we're dealing with. Here's the potholes, here's the sidewalk issues. And if we could make that visual representation of our issues on Stevenson Road, I mean, it's just going to speak for itself. So I would really like to move forward with this if Matt Kramer would be able to take the lead and talk to PDS on how we would get involved with this program.
Yeah, Tricia Brush, who heads that up, is really incredible. And if you look at their website, pdskc.org, there are several different story map projects that they have worked on, and one of them from, I think it was, is it Ludlow or Bellevue? They actually were nationally recognized. They got first place in story mapping among the planning and zoning world. So really incredible what they do. And if you do look at the story map of the intersection that Ms. Fetty was talking about in Fort Mitchell, it does such a great job of showing here's what the problem is and here's what the proposed solution is. And when the state saw that, it was, I don't know, within a month it was funded. So, that helps a lot. So I think it would be a great benefit for Stevenson Road. I think a lot of people aren't aware of what all the issues are, and that would be a good way to kind of put it all together.
Yeah, and the Buttermilk Orphanage intersection, that one has been given the funding. It's not a guarantee. So there was another one done up on Crestview Hills, like the Crestview Hills Town Center and the Thomas More Parkway, not that intersection being an issue. They put together the story map. It looks absolutely beautiful. It didn't get funding, but still they have that for later on down the line when funding becomes available, they're already ahead of the game with understanding the issues.
Yeah, right.
And we have a lot of footage, videos, and pictures on Stevenson with rain. So it'll be nice to have somebody to put that together the way it needs to be put together.
I'm glad you mentioned that,
Yeah.
because that is the one thing that Tricia Brush asked me.
Yeah,
Because we talked about that, and she said if council can document it, the next big rain, take pictures, take
We
video.
did that in April when they had to shut it down.
Yeah, any bit we can get, in
I have
addition
like
to.
10 videos.
The ice this
Yeah, we'll get the ice too, but I got the videos from that really bad rainstorm in April.
Yeah.
And probably, we have, before the rainstorm, we have about 50 pictures, we have another 50 after, so we have lots to give her.
Yeah, and you know, there's parts there where the road is the same level as the sidewalk.
Right,
And that
right.
puddles across the road and the sidewalk.
Right.
The drains, it drains slowly, and then we've got, you know, the turns and stuff like that. There's all kinds of dangerous things right there. Yeah, the ditches, yeah.
But not only do we need pictures and videos, but we also need citizen testimonies. So if you guys know of citizens that are along Stevenson Road that would be willing to sit in front of a camera and talk about Stevenson Road issues, that's key. I thought that was, and the business owners as
Business,
well.
yeah.
If we can talk to Gramers, the Gramers owner, maybe the Stevenson Road greenhouse owner would be huge. He is a very difficult parking lot. So,
I mean, kids walk that area too, I mean, to get to
Oh,
Arnett.
there's a lot of foot traffic.
There is, if we could catch some of that as well.
And when Tom and I were walking, doing the dry pictures, there was a man talking about every time it rains, how far up the driveway it goes. I think just walking up and down the street, almost everybody will talk to us.
Yeah, okay. I guess we should put it out there as well for the police. I don't know how much of that could be shared as well.
So we actually have Chief Wilson help me develop a report on the number of accidents over the last 3 years and location on Stevenson, so we do have that information. So.
Great, great. We do have Rep. Koenig here. I know his ears are open. I know he's hearing it.
Who's that? What guy?
So, Jessica, I'll go ahead and make contact with PDS, but I'll send out an email to all council if you guys can give me feedback, because I'm kind of behind on, you know, all the discussions you've had before, Stevenson. So if you can give me all that input, because that'll be part of the application process, all the concerns that we have, so they can validate or otherwise. And then any kind of pictures and videos, if you want to send them to me, and I'll consolidate them and pass them out, so.
okay, awesome, thank you.
All right, are there any other reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the reports of city operations. We've got our city engineer, Mr. Viox.
Yes, sir. If you recall, last meeting, last month, I indicated we were going to take bids for the first phase of our sidewalk replacement repair project. And we said we were going to start in Zone 1, the first zone, and we were hopeful that the numbers that came in were a lot less than we had in the budget, and if that was the case, we would extend it into the next phase as long as we stay within the budget. Well, you're going to see in a few minutes when we review the bids that they are well under what we have in the budget, so therefore we are going to recommend that we can extend the work into the next phase of the project under the same contract. So I just want to make you aware of that before we read the bids. Thanks.
Great.
That's all I have, sir.
Okay. All right, then City Attorney, Mr. Gatlin.
I've got several things, but first I'd like to go ahead and punt to Mr. Parsons, who is here, who is actually can talk about the second reading of the Houston-Erlanger Road Development Area, if you want to say a few words. I know there's dirt being moved.
Yeah, members of council, thank you for letting me be here tonight. Basically, I was just here to answer questions relative to the project. I can tell you, you have it on your agenda for second reading tonight. I will let you know that the Kenton County Fiscal Court has approved first reading of its ordinance agreeing to participate with the city, and it's scheduled to adopt its ordinance next Tuesday. And then also, we've made presentation to PDS, and the PDS Area Planning Council, its planning council has recommended to its taxing board that PDS also participate with the city in that establishment of the TIF district. So we anticipate we'll get final approval of PDS this month, and then we will go ahead and circulate the execution, assuming the city approves the ordinance tonight. Other than that, the project itself has closed, the main project with the Showcase Cinema sites, and so dirt is being moved. And the financing's in place for at least one of the buildings that will be part of that project. So it is proceeding and moving forward. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank
And
you.
if there is questions during the second reading, we'll be glad to answer those.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Also, we've got second reading of the payroll tax incentives. I think that, does anyone have any questions on that, or is that's fairly, we've talked about that quite a bit. Two first readings. Firearms ordinance, we have a first reading on tonight, and as Ms. Kyle indicated, there's been quite a bit of discussion over this ordinance over the last couple of weeks. And the only change from what was discussed in committee relates to paragraph C, where we have taken out the word toy. We have taken out the word pea shooter, which quite frankly I had to Google. I wasn't even sure what a pea shooter was.
Oh, my gosh.
I-
I'm
But
going to get one.
I'm just, they're little metal things that they're like blowguns or something. Yeah, didn't know that. I'm naive.
Paper wads in school?
So
Deprived.
we took out pea shooter, we took out toy, and then we added the word in paragraph C, throwing or projecting dangerous missiles. So I think that has alleviated everyone's concerns. Matt still is on board with it, the police department's still on board with that, so we have first reading. The second first reading we have tonight, which has just sort of popped up that was not discussed in committee, is a very, very innocuous ordinance, which was recommended by the police department, and it is merely reducing the impound handling fee from $75 to $25, and that was based on the recommendation of both the assistant police chief and the police chief. The other resolutions is we've got a resolution to enter, which is this is a weird one, and if the fire chief wants to talk about it, if there's any questions, I'll let him. We are not merging with Houston. If you actually look at the interlocal agreement, it's a very, very unique situation.
Houston, we have a problem.
That's right. That's right. I was in a 2-hour meeting with the fire department to try to better understand this, and all I can say is it's a little confusing, but Houston has figured out how to better buy fire apparatus and fire equipment. So they have created this program that that there's a resolution for us to enter, which will allow the fire department a little easier access. But as the resolution states, it does not change the statutory requirements, that we are still going to go through the formal bidding process, and I think that I saw an email that went to council where the fire department kind of explained how we're going to be doing all of that. So it's a little weird. Next is we have the resolution, which would just be for Dave Hahn to make application to PDS for text amendment on the peer-to-peer short-term rentals. By no means is that a complete affirmation of peer-to-peer short-term rentals, but obviously council could stop that whole process tonight if they don't approve Dave to make that application. If you recall, it's a two-step process on peer-to-peer rentals. It's first, we need to have a text amendment that would allow it in whatever residential zones we make that application on. And the second part would be that we would regulate it through an additional ordinance. So the resolution that is on tonight is for Dave Hahn to make application on behalf of the city of Erlanger for that text amendment that would go then in front of the Planning Commission after recommendation. And then the final resolution that is discussed tonight is the CRS separation lawsuit. That is the lawsuit that was originated by Fort Wright about 4 to 5 years ago. It is not a lawsuit that is seeking to separate the two programs in any way other than to separate where the assets are being pooled. There's various legal arguments that have been presented by Fort Wright and their main attorney, Ron Perry, at the firm of Strauss Troy, that has been leading that charge. There is no cost to the City of Independence, as we discussed at the committee meeting. I'm sorry?
No cost to the city of Erlanger either.
Yeah, well, I had Taylor Mill and Independence written on here because that was the next part. There's no cost to Erlanger either.
That's good.
Next week, Taylor Mill and Independence have agreed to enter the lawsuit, and next week that motion is pending before the court to formally add Taylor Mill and Independence. That's why I had them written down. There is no cost to Erlanger. However, from a practical perspective, Fort Wright filed it as a class action lawsuit, so every city, if they are meritorious in this, would be a beneficiary of that litigation. I think that Mayor Hatter is requesting other cities to kind of join in the ranks because the more cities that are part of it, it might add to the pressure in the Franklin Circuit Court. I think, again, that was discussed at length at the committee meeting, and I'll answer any questions on that, and Frank can as well, because ironically, it's Taylor Mill that Frank represents and Independence that I represent that are in the process of joining that suit. So unless there's any other questions, I have nothing further.
All right, so then we'll move on to the City Council Attorney, Mr. Wickman.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have to report is that we finally have received a deed to the property down on Pleasure Isle Drive that we've been concerned about. So as soon as we record that, then we can schedule an auction of it, get rid of it.
Okay.
Hopefully that'll get done before the next council meeting.
Okay. And I have that here in front of me. I'll make sure you have that before you leave this evening. All right, then the City Administrator, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things on grants. We did receive a grant this month for the police department. It's $7,000 towards 23 ballistic vests for the department until August of 19. So that's a lot of money that was brought in through the grants that were written by Ed Bailey. The staff and I have negotiated police and city-side employment contracts this last month. I'm pleased to announce all employees have been offered another contract and have signed on for another year. Staff and I are continuing to research dispatch options. We have had many meetings with Kent County and other agencies to research what's best financially and operationally for the citizens of Erlanger, and we'll be able to speak to that more next month once we're done with the research. The staff has renegotiated the city's healthcare contract. As you know, this is finishing up our first year of a self-funded plan, or self-insured plan for the city. It's proven to be a great success for both the city and the employees. Just ask them and they will tell you it's also financially been a success for the city. We paid less than we have in years. The new contract will ensure that we will remain self-insured until 2020, so it's been a great offer that the company has given towards us and that we've researched and have accepted. Staff did a great job researching options and deciding on the new contract. December 12th will be our holiday party at Edgewood Senior Center. In case that has been put out yet, it will be put out. And pending anyone's questions, that's all I have to report.
Were you going to mention dispatch? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. You've heard the reports of our representatives and city operations. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Everybody's kind of quiet this evening. Somber night. Okay, correspondence. Mrs. Hoffman, is there any correspondence this evening?
There is, sir. The Mayor and Council received a thank you card from Missy Andrus thanking them for their support and trust during her 10 years with the city. Mayor Hermes and Matthew Kramer received an email from Chris Derry with Silver Lake Recreation Center thanking them for participating in their most recent groundbreaking ceremony. Mayor Hermes received a letter from the Timberwoods Condo Association telling him of the wonderful presentation that Fire and EMS employees Rhonda Wolf and Brian Robinson gave on the mechanics of the Fire and EMS departments. And Mayor Hermes received a thank you letter from the Erlanger family from New Jersey, thanking the city for a tour of Erlanger when they visited in October. And that's all, sir.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, now is the time of the meeting for citizen public comments. Thank you, Mr. Hahn. All right, first we have Mr. Kevin Quinn. Thank you, welcome.
Thank you. A couple people to thank. First, to jump on Ed's comments about Al. 5 years ago, Al trained me. And I can't express enough thanks to Ed. Al, and the rest of the department for helping me when I first started, so thanks, Al. Secondly, on October 10th, my father lives at over on Hope Lane. He was experiencing some chest pains. My mom got him in the car, started to bring him, stopped at the fire department because she didn't know if she was going to make it or not. Unfortunately, a squad was already out on a run, but because of the training of the rest of the fire department, they came straight out and assisted my father. He's resting comfortably at home, so everything worked out for the best. So I just want to thank Rhonda Wolf. I got their names written down. I can't remember them all because there's quite a few of them. Regis Huth, Chase Autry, Eric McDonald, and Brian Brownfield for their help. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, yeah. All right, next we've got Mr. Josh Blair. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I was the one who actually brought the petition for the dog park with the 162 signatures back in the July meeting. So while I definitely would like to see that move forward, I do appreciate everyone looking into that and discussing that at the committee meeting. And hopefully it's something that we'll develop in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that's all we have signed up. Is there anybody else that would like to say anything this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. All right, to the bids. As Mr. Biox mentioned, we've got the sidewalk bid.
Yes, sir. This is phase one of a sidewalk replacement project in various streets within zone number 1. If you go to the second sheet, you'll see, and actually the third sheet, JPS Construction Company is $80,905.40. Glenn Regular Blacktop Incorporated was $85,390. Paul Michaels and Sons Incorporated was $116,820. And TMS Construction Incorporated was $136,863.50. As I mentioned earlier, we are well under the budget amount for the year. So it's our recommendation we award the work to JPS Construction, and we allow them to extend the unit prices within this contract to include additional work within zone number 2.
All right. Mr. Biox, I don't know if this is possible or not. Is it possible to go ahead and just briefly describe so everybody else knows what we call zone 1?
Ed, you want to describe zone 1 and 2 that we're going to work within?
Zone 1 runs, what we consider Zone 1 in the Public Works Department runs from Commonwealth Avenue over to Kenneboo, and from Dixie Highway over to Cherry Hill. Zone 2, Commonwealth Avenue over to Kenton Lands Road, Dixie Highway to the interstate.
Okay.
Zone 1 is all included in it with bid, and we hope to make some progress within zone 2.
And when do you think the work would start then?
Probably start right away. We told the contractor they could start as soon as we award this thing tonight, but I don't know how far we'll get before bad weather, but we're going to try to get them started.
Okay, wonderful.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. On the bid, on it, it says like numbers on this last sheet where it says seed and mulch or sod striping. I know JPS was the low bidder, but they were the high one on that particular section. They were at $9,000, and TMS Construction was at $4,260. Are you with me, Jim? Do you see where I'm talking?
I understand.
Okay.
You're looking at different items on the bid sheet.
Number 7. Yeah. Not
Well, what
looking at-
happened, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 7.
It's the second 7.
That's what I'm looking at.
What's your question? Why is this so much higher than?
Well, it's double what TM, is it one whole bid? Or why couldn't you just take 9,000 off of the 80,000 and pay this guy over here 4260?
Well, it depends on how much volume we've got of each one of those items.
Oh, okay.
We had all these different items in here in case they were we encounter them. In other words, there's going to be some intersections where there's going to be some black concrete work replacement. If that occurs, we may be into the street. That we have to have a unit price for that because somebody might have to take out a section of the street. They may have to take out some driveway aprons. They may have to put in a handicap ramp where it doesn't exist. So we had unit prices for all those different items. And they came up with this total based on what the Public Works was able to measure up out there. They haven't even marked the whole area yet. What they're going to do, we wanted unit prices for all these things so that then they're going to go out there in the field with the contractor and mark all the areas that they want replaced. And we're only going to pay them on these unit prices for whatever they mark. Does that confuse you?
And that portion of the bid was bid as a lump sum?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything you see LS is a lump sum. In other words, we're not going to pay them any more for that. It's going to be a lump sum amount.
Yeah, the problem might be trying to talk one of the other guys into, who's a asphalt and concrete company to come in and do the restoration for somebody else.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's what her question was, because it's
I guess I
confusing,
didn't
but
really, yeah.
you gotta take the whole bid as a total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't segregate out items for different contractors.
It just looked like, to me, it was bizarre. I don't know if the
Well,
level was low.
what it is the way the contractors want to get paid. When they do so much work, some of the items that they get done up front, they get paid a higher price for, and they don't have to carry the job. So that's the way they distribute their costs within the project.
So you're saying maybe some of the ones who are showing a lower number might front-end load those
That's
costs
correct.
into something else. Okay. That makes sense. All right,
Or
so,
if they have a sub that they're using.
okay. Are there any other questions about the bid or discussion? Can we entertain a motion to accept the bid? Motion by Mrs. Sedkamp, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
That's all I have, sir.
All right, do we have any items under old business to discuss? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Mr. Kramer, is this something that you would like to talk about?
Yes, so the Public Works put out the new flag for Erlanger with a new logo. One thing that was left out was any kind of motto. Previously, the motto for Erlanger was a friendship city, and from my research that we've discussed this in council before. So before we print a flag, I just want to make sure we want to leave that logo off of the flag and just use a symbol, or what everyone's feelings were on that before we spend money on it.
I think we were kind of looking for a more basic, homey feel, not to brand us
Okay.
per se. If you all agree.
Does anybody else have, I just don't want to we don't want to spend the money on a flag and then think about it later, or do we want to push that to the next committee meeting? Like I said, you guys have talked about this from before, for what I'm being told, or do we just want to have the flag with just the logo?
I don't remember necessarily saying that we didn't want to be the Friendship City. I know, it's been on there for a long time. I do remember people, I've heard people complain that that kind of gets thrown in the staff's face a lot, anytime someone gets disgruntled about something.
Yeah.
But I don't know, any thoughts, any comments from anybody?
I thought we decided to drop it.
Okay.
Steve, you remember? Joe, I'm sorry. I was looking at you.
It's been a long meeting.
But you were involved in the discussions. Do you remember what we said? We don't remember, obviously.
You did kick around another item. What was the other motto?
We're always home.
Oh, yeah.
We're always home.
I hated that.
If we're
Not
home,
always
who's
home.
minding the city?
Especially the police and fire, they're never home.
Or if we're always home, who's minding the city?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not hearing anything else. I mean, are we saying overwhelmingly that we leave the Friendship City off the new flag? Are we seeing nods, or do we want to punt this to the committee meeting? I'm open to anybody speaking
I'll add
up
it
on
to the
this.
committee meeting.
Another meeting over the
Because we haven't beaten this horse enough.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my gosh, we've been talking about this for a year.
The horse isn't
Yeah.
dead yet.
Okay.
Whether or not we feel that.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we kill the Friendship City.
The reason I brought it up was just for
That's
the
tough to get
flag
a
purposes.
second.
Tricia, that's SUED.
My gosh.
KAMP.
Is there a second?
I mean, we could still use it anywhere we want, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the logo for everything, I don't think.
My only question right now is just, do we put it on the flag?
I know it was, Matt.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor. I don't see a second. We'll say the motion dies for lack of a second. We will be discussing this on the 21st.
Oh,
Thank you.
yay.
Thank you for trying. Okay. All right, so if there's nothing else under new business,
I think the fire department, they're having 2 bid openings this month. One is for 2 fire engines and one is for 2 power cot locking systems, and they need to call a committee meeting to have those discussed.
okay. So we'll discuss that on the 21st. Okay.
Should we bring a lunch or a sleeping bag?
Yeah, really.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business? Go ahead.
It's not really new business, not really old business. I'm just asking for prayers for our dear friend Julie Harris. She's really fighting the fight, so please keep her in your prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to legislation. The first item under legislation is an ordinance regarding the payroll tax incentives. This is the second reading.
This is an ordinance amending Ordinance 2350 and Section 37 of the Erlanger Code of Ordinances, establishing an economic incentive for the development of jobs and employment in the city and the qualifications for that incentive. By summary, we're amending the 2350 Section 37. The strike-through portions are to be deleted. The underlying portions are to be added. Some of the major changes that have been made to this ordinance is it's putting the economic director in charge of the process instead of the mayor. It is also changing the qualifications as indicated in Section 6. That, and I'm going to go ahead and read these because I think they're important, that it's that part of the application process, that there's an explanation for how the business and the proposed new or expanded business activity meets any of the following factors: directly increases future revenue job creation in the city of Erlanger, significantly decreases blight within the city of Erlanger. The business's proposed new or expanded capital improvement will significantly increase the property tax value, and the business's proposed new or expanded capital improvement will significantly improve previously documented environmental hazards contaminated on the property. Also, under paragraph 2 of A, we have lowered the number from $1 million to $750,000 in payroll, or has incurred $500,000 in capital improvements within the 12 months of the application. Yeah.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt? Motion by Mrs. Sedkamp, seconded by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Blankenship,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely? Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion carried. Next is an ordinance regarding the Houston Erlanger Road Development Area. This is the second reading.
This is in relation to the Showcase Cinema property that Mr. Parsons spoke on. This is an ordinance of the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, making certain findings concerning and establishing a development area for economic development purposes within the city to be known as the Houston Road Erlanger Road Development Area, approving a local participation agreement among the city, the county of Kenton, Kentucky, the agency as hereinafter defined in Planning and Development Services of Kenton County, PDS, and Erlanger, and USICIV LLC, the developer, establishing a special fund for payment of project costs, infrastructure and site development costs, financing costs, and redevelopment assistance, designating the Finance Department of the city as the agency responsible for oversight, administration, and implementation of the development area, authorizing the mayor and other officials to take such other appropriate actions as are necessary or required in connection with the establishment of the development area. The title is more or less a summary in of itself. The development agreement, if you look at Exhibit A and Exhibit B, it's the proposed TIF districts. This is a second reading.
All right, do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mr. Montgomery. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery? Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely? Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion carried. Next one is an ordinance regarding the firearms. This is a first reading.
This is an ordinance regulating the discharging of firearms and use of other projectile weapons in all densely populated areas within the city of Erlanger. By summary, this does not apply to commercial establishments that might operate a gun range within any zone that in the future might allow for those gun ranges. It simply states that it shall be unlawful to discharge a firearm, revolver, pistol, shotgun, or rifle, or air gun or air pistol, BB gun or pistol or rifle when those projectiles leave the property line. So under number A, it's per se not appropriate to discharge a firearm, and under C, when it's what I would call the lesser type firearms or more of the, I hate to use the word toy firearm, it has to leave the property. And obviously this prohibition does not stop any law enforcement agencies from discharging their firearms. This is a first reading.
All right. Please let the minutes show that the first reading has occurred. Next is an ordinance regarding impound fees. This is another first reading.
It's an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, amending the handling fee related to towing and impounding motor vehicles as adopted by Ordinance 2333 and referenced in Section 70.33 of the Erlanger Code of Ordinances. By summary, all this is doing is amending the handling fee from $75 to $25.
All right, I'd ask that Mrs. Hoffman note the first reading of this ordinance as well. Next is a municipal order regarding the police chief appointment.
So municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the mayor's appointment of Todd Brendel as Chief of Police pursuant to KRS 83A080 subsection 3, and this appointment would be effective December 1st, 2017.
All right, do I entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance? Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? Oh, sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Congratulations. Just wanted to make sure that that happened. He said he's got to go get his son. Okay. Okay, so the next up is the municipal order regarding surplus vehicles.
Municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, making the written determinations required by KRS 82083 for the sale or other disposition of property owned by the city. Pursuant to the statute, the attached spreadsheet indicates the 4 vehicles that are being disposed of by electronic auction.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Sedkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is a resolution regarding the Houston Galveston area. Oh boy, I knew I shouldn't have tried to guess what that, or say what all that is. The HGAC interlocal agreement.
Yeah, the HGAC interlocal agreement, which is the Houston Galveston Area Council.
Council, thank you.
This is a resolution for the city of Erlanger to, and for the Mayor Hermes to enter into the local contract for cooperative purchasing with the Houston Galveston Area Council. However, all acquisitions made through the HGAC contract will still be subject to the provisions of KRS 424.260 requiring bidding.
All right, do I entertain a motion to adopt this resolution? Motion by Mrs. Sedkamp, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is a resolution regarding the CERS separation lawsuit.
So resolution of the City of Erlanger, Kentucky to enter its appearance in current litigation styled City of Fort Wright, Kentucky versus Board of Trustees, the Kentucky Retirement Systems Franklin Circuit Court case number 1259. This is a case that now will soon have both Independence and Taylor Mill in, as we discussed. By resolution, this would authorize the city to enter that lawsuit, which will be no cost to the city.
All right. Do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next is a resolution regarding the Hahn Authority to file text amendment for, or the Mr. Hahn Authority to file text amendment regarding the peer-to-peer.
This is a resolution sponsoring a proposed text amendment, whereas the city's economic director, as agent of the city's legislative body, is authorized to apply and propose a text amendment which would allow short-term peer-to-peer rentals to be studied and set for public hearing pursuant to KRS 200.211.
All right, do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion?
Yes, this is on the short-term rental?
Speak into the,
Short-term rental?
yes,
We filed an application for this.
yes.
When did we vote on to pass it?
This would be a text amendment. So we're voting on it right now.
Well, you're voting on having Dave Hahn make an application for a proposed text amendment. Depending on what happens with the Kenton County Planning Commission, it will come back to this council to vote for the text amendment as an ordinance. So this is the first step.
We can't vote on it now.
This is the vote to allow him to do it. So you could certainly vote to not allow him to do it. So and it would stop the process right then.
I'll make a proposal to drop it.
My understanding is there's already a motion for it to be approved.
And there's a second. We'll vote here in a second. Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Sudkamp?
No.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Skidmore?
No.
Ms. Kyle?
No.
Mr. Nicely?
No.
Ms. Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
Mr. Montgomery?
No.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
No.
6 noes,
5 yeses.
5 yeses.
All right, looks like the motion fails. All right, that's the last item on the agenda. I had seen that a gentleman by the name of Andrew Louts was in the crowd, and I know he walked out to talk, it looked like. I was going to ask him to say something before we adjourn. He is here representing Toyota Bashoku, and he was very interested in making sure that the payroll tax incentive ordinance passed this evening, and I thought maybe I'd ask him to say a word or two.
We can give him a
I'd
minute.
certainly let him say no. Mr. Louts, I don't want to put you in a bad spot here, so don't feel, don't hesitate to say no. But before we adjourn the meeting, I wanted to ask if you wanted to say anything regarding the payroll tax incentive.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just take the opportunity to say that among the economic development circles that I circulate in, I'm a realtor. My name is Andrew Louts, and I'm with Huff Realty, and I represent many Japanese companies because I was born and raised in Japan and I speak Japanese. My parents were missionaries there after World War II, so I actually, in my business, I extend hospitality to that business community. And I have heard from the state economic development people and from the folks at Tri-County Economic Development Department that this ordinance that you all passed tonight is very cutting edge, very innovative, very progressive, and one of my clients will be taking advantage of that right away. And so I just wanted to commend you for that forward-thinking, retention, the effort to retain these high-volume employers that we've lost in recent years. And this is a method that we can use to preserve these good jobs and good employers in the city. So, sure, thank you for the opportunity to address the city council.
And do I understand you have an application with you this evening?
Yes, I do,
Okay.
and I'll be giving that to you as soon as the ordinance is signed. My client
Okay.
has authorized me to give you that application.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks for
you.
being here. Thanks for sticking in the meeting. All right, with that then, I'd
ask
entertain
for
a
much
motion
more.
to adjourn. What's that?
Can't ask for any quicker
know.
service than that.
Right, right. Yeah, quick response.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. All right, so do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.